warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this video, we are going to say, how do you say this in the Arabic language? So if I was to say, had this been, I'm sorry, actually, I'm not going to use Google Translate. Okay. So if I want to say, had this been in my control, right, I would have done it already. Right now, if I want to say this, had this been in my control, I would have done it already. Or in other words, if this was in my hands, I would have done it, right? Or done it already. How do you say this in the Arabic language, right? So we're going to learn how do you say this today. And I'm just gonna open Google Translate, and not just so that we can cheat, but rather so that I can write it in Arabic and then show you that it's completely correct. So the very first word that we're going to write is low kana, right? Low kana. Low kana actually means had this been, right? Or had it been, right? So low kana is just used for something that didn't happen. It's kind of a conditional sentence. So low means if, and kana is like if this was the case, right? If this was the case. So low kana dhalika, if that was, right? If that was. Biyadi, no, biyadi actually means in my hand. But if I want to say in both my hands, had it been in my hands, I would say biyadayya. I would write this, but Google Translate, I don't really think it supports it. So I'm just going to tell you how do you read this. I'm not going to write it. So there you go. لو كان ذلك بيدي. I'm pronouncing it as yadayya because I'm trying to say had this been in my hands, in both of my hands, right? Because it was actually I don't want to go into depth, okay? So, لو كان ذلك بيدي, had this been in my hands. Now, in conditional sentences, there are always two parts. The first part is going to be the condition itself, right? Had this been in my hands is the condition, and then the answer to that condition, like had this been in my hands, so what? What would have you done? Right? I would have done this. I would have done that if that was in my control, right? So the second part is going to be what? The second part is going to be the jawabul shart, as we call it in the Arabic language, right? Or the answer to the condition. So لو كان ذلك بيدي, had this been in my hands is actually what? It's the condition itself, and then there's something that comes after the condition, and that is this. So whenever you use low in the Arabic language, it's a condition, right? The answer to that condition is always going to have a lam on top. In the beginning, it's going to have a lam. So I'm just going to write a lam. And then I'm just going to say قد فعلت ذلك, right? And قد means already, فعلت means I did, ذلك that, right? So I would have done it already. It literally means I did it already, right? But when you write it as an answer to a condition, right, or as a second part of a conditional sentence, then it means I would have done it already, right? And like in English, you would have to add would have, but in Arabic, you don't really have to do it because it's understood. You didn't do it, you would have done it because of because of the context or siyaq, as we say in the Arabic language, right? And it's going to be laqad fa'altu dhalik. Why have I added a lam over here? Is because there's a low in the beginning, right? And this is an answer to the low, right? Low means if this had happened, then what have you done, right? Then what have you done? The answer to that is going to come with a lam. So لو كان ذلك بيدي لقد فعلت ذلك. Follow for more. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.